Hey guys, I'm Alex.
And I'm Drew.
And today on the Two Man Comic Book Club podcast, we're talking about our personal 5 top underrated superheroes. Let's go. I guess we're going to sit here and just vibe through this intro music.
Yeah.
Oh, if you would like to sing your own arrangement of the Two Man Comic Book Club podcast intro music, tweet it at us.
At Two Man Comic Book with the number 2.
Yeah. So things are a little different today. Boom. Oh, how to do that, he says. Boom. How'd he do that, he says. And then back white again. Oh, cool. So we're trying for the first time ever a completely different setup that is going to, fingers crossed, allow us to extremely quickly expedite the process of exporting and finishing these videos so that they can get to you quicker and give us more time not doing that. Not sure if it's going to work all the time. This is a trial run. Also, I am running camera angles live while I do this, so I'm going to try my best to, anytime that Drew starts talking,
I'm starting to talk,
and then I switch back to me whenever it's time to talk, and then when appropriate, we go wide angle.
When we decide to have our staring contest.
Right. So, bear with us if there happens to be this awkward pause where for 10 seconds I'm talking and you're just looking at Drew stare at me. Well, sorry about it. We'll get better in the future.
Also, if you're watching on YouTube and the audio is interesting, we're trying something. We're trying to go straight out of Logic into the switcher, so that literally it's like one-stop shopping. But we may end up having to sync in post because the levels on our little switching machine seem to be very, what's the word?
Reserved?
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say touchy. Like, I felt like we were barely, it was hardly anything was coming out, and it was just, you should have heard the first sound check we did.
It was complete distorted mess. It sounded like a avant-garde sound metal band.
But in a bad way.
Yeah, for sure. So if you are just listening, some of that might have been confusing. We are switching our camera angles live, and hopefully that's going to help us. I mean, far and away, the most time-consuming part of this whole hobby podcast is making the YouTube video and editing it and coloring it and exporting it and putting the panels on it. And there won't be any panels today, but in the future, we've also set it up to where you can live view our iPad with us so that we are going to very easily be able to show you what we're looking at. We can even, in some ways, get more detail because it allows us some flexibility to kind of pinch to zoom and do some cool creative stuff in that manner.
There is one possibility, which I've heard of with this device, and that is that over time, the picture and the video, or the audio and the video start to get out of sync. So, hey, we're going to figure this out. That's kind of why we picked just a random talking episode that we wanted to discuss. So it'll be theoretically short and sweet, and we'll be able to see if it all works out.
Right. So hopefully there's not a bunch of ridiculous lag as this goes on. If you're watching and you're eagle-eyed, you might notice a little bit like it might not be perfect. I don't know. We'll see. Again, this is the first time we've ever done this. We met today with the goal of figuring this out. So
figured out.
We'll see what happens. Anyway, do you want to do some what you've been reading?
Yeah. I was going to say.
What you been reading, yo?
Several things. I've been trying to get my money's worth out of the DC Universe Infinite, Dunder Mifflin Infinity app.
Smat.
I've already mentioned, I've been going back and spending some time with Animal Man from the 88, 87 range. Same thing with Doom Patrol from the same era. Man, there was a hard episode or a hard issue to read on Doom Patrol the other day. It was like the dialogue was like pulling teeth. It was like, I will use my magnetic thing to keep the shrapnel from cutting through.
The classic show me, don't tell me rule was being broken pretty hard, I imagine.
But I'm getting closer and closer to Grant Morrison's debut on Doom Patrol, so I'm excited. I also finally, I wanted to read Future State, and I started to. And those comics are so long. I would start to read one and then I'd fall asleep, and it would take me like 3 nights to make it through one comic because they're like 60 pages long. But on DC Universe, we finally gotten to the stuff after that. So, I was caught up with Supergirl, Superman, Batman, all those up until Future State happened. And now there's finally 2 months or two something worth. So I got to read two fresh Superman books and Action Comics. That's a Philip Kennedy Johnson, I think that's his name is, that we heard from Ryan was really good. And I'm reading that, man. There's some sad stuff, like not like, but I'm just like, I'm getting emotional as a Superman fan reading this stuff. Like the potential for where this story might be going. And now I'm at a point where it's like, oh, I got to wait a month at a time to see. But anyway, that's what I've been reading. I also just finished reading. So we won't be putting this in post. So I'm going to try to get it in there good. Hey, that kind of works.
Yeah, not bad.
So Time Before Time, we talked about it briefly because Alex bought the first 2 books, and this was one of them that I picked up whenever we went to our impromptu comic shop. And I think this might be what we cover next week. So depending on when this comes out, I'm not exactly sure. So you got time to find it. It's on trade paperback if you know where to look. Definitely worth it, especially for me because time travel is one of my hobbies.
I have a confession.
What's that?
I've done next to no comic book reading since I last saw each other.
That's my job.
That is usually your thing, and I stole it this week. I for one reason or another,
I'm so ashamed of you.
I didn't get into it. I thought about it last night. I picked up my iPad, and my finger was hovering above the Marvel Unlimited app, and then it slipped and fell onto YouTube, and there went the rest of my night. But in lieu of my slot of telling you what you've been reading, Drew and I have some stuff to tell you about an upcoming thing we're going to do. We probably should have got this out last week and last episode, but it's hard to think so many episodes in ahead when you're recording in bulk. So, Drew, tell them what we are doing.
So, if you've been listening or listened back, last year we had our first 2-man Christmas, where we had a little Christmas special.
It was so fun.
We had a gift exchange between, Alex, I, and Torrance, and it was fun, just getting to buy comics. We also had a drawing, and we'd like to do that again. We'll give a little bit more details about that. It's a typical type of drawing. We want to give some love, some comics that we've enjoyed reading or that we want to read. The typical thing like liking and subscribing some YouTube videos, leaving comments.
There'll be some clear ways to enter, and you should be excited. This is the second annual 2-man Christmas. And it was one of our favorite things I think we did last year. Yeah. We had fun goofing around making a little preview video for it. Maybe we'll throw something together again this year.
And I've been taking jazz piano lessons, so maybe it'll be up another notch.
It's going to be nice. So if you're interested in doing that, we're going to leave some descriptions in the show notes, some things you can do. But just in general, like the stuff you do in all the giveaways, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave comments telling us what you liked about the episode. Big one will be we're trying to figure out extra entries based on possibly leaving iTunes, Apple Podcast reviews. That's going to be a huge thing. And maybe even I don't know, I was thinking earlier if we get crazy and can verify that you went out of your way to take your friend's phone, open their podcast app of choice, and hit subscribe to the 2-Man Comic Book Club podcast.
It'd be a double entry.
Yeah.
And just to be safe, let's just go ahead and assume that if you're leaving a comment, let's go ahead and add the hashtag 2-Man Christmas 2021.
Yes.
How about that? Just to decipher from that. We'll give you more details about that in the coming months. We'll be drawing sometime around Christmas, so you got time. Anyway, also, we almost did this last year, but we didn't quite have the community going yet. But now that we have a Discord going, I'm really excited, and we'll see if it takes off. But I'd like to start the 2-man Secret Santa.
Ooh.
So if you're a member of the Discord, we'll talk to you about it in there. If you're not a member of the Discord, then please join. By the way, speaking of that, there seems to be some weird goings on in various apps where if you click on the Discord app, it doesn't actually take you there, or the Discord link in the show notes.
Right,
it works on YouTube.
The links are just broken somehow, depending on where you click on them.
So if you can't find that, it works on the Apple Podcast app for some reason.
Right.
So go ahead and
And
just
in
drop by there.
YouTube as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, just go by the Apple Podcast, leave a 5-star rating and review, and click the Discord link. There we go. But once you get into the Discord, we'll get that sorted out, and we'll start a little channel about who wants to, like, the people that are in our community on Discord having a little Secret Santa, So you'll share. We'll give you the money, the cap and the minimum spending.
We will not actually give you money.
No, sorry. We'll tell you, all right, I'm thinking between $20 and $30.
Max for sure.
And you'll get somebody's address and where to mail it, and just have share the joy of getting some comics in your mail.
Yeah, and I thought about this earlier. If you want to partake in this, but you are uncomfortable giving your address out to somebody, we can absolutely be a middleman for that.
Yeah.
I feel like we know the bulk of the people inside our Discord well enough to be able to handle that sort of thing. So don't let that be a deterrent from you actually partaking. It's going to be super cool. It felt nice we did just a tiny version of it last year, and it was a lot of fun, just like wondering, what cool comic books am I going to get this year? And the whole reason this podcast exists is so we can spread the love of comic reading, and what better way to do that than saying we love each other through the gift of comic books. Tis the season.
Way.
Tis the best way. Any other thoughts before we jump into our likely to be controversial underrated lists?
I feel like I had one just a second ago, and I already managed to forget. So,
did you write yours down?
No, I meant like the thing to comment.
Something else to say.
I've got my list right here.
Before we get too far into it, why don't we go ahead and do our social shout outs just to get that out on the front end. Where can they find us on the internet? You
can find our the channel page. Why am I having a hard time with this? I've done this 86 times or whatever. We are at 2Man Comic Book with the number 2 on Twitter, 2Man Comic Book Club on Facebook and Instagram. Shoot us an email, 2mancomicbookclub@gmail.com. Give us a phone call. Tell us who your top 5 underrated superheroes are. 662manfan8. Obviously, the Discord that we already mentioned. Link in the show notes that you can click on in Apple Podcasts, but apparently nowhere else. Or in the YouTube description. Click it there. We really want you to be on our Discord. That's all I remember.
You can find me at all social media platforms at Alex Wayne Miller. Wayne is Wayne, just like Bruce Wayne, because I am Batman, especially with this cool Bat Cave of a podcast setup we got going on. Where can they find you, Drew?
You can find me at Drew Morris Comp on Twitter, Drew Morris Composer, Instagram, Facebook, or drop by my website, drewmorrismusic.com.
I think we should do this 5-5-4-4-3-3-2-2-1-1.
Okay. I don't know that I actually had mine in like a specific list, so mine are just
mine are in order.
5 random.
In a list. And I'll tell you right now, I did all Marvel characters because I don't have enough. I mean, I obviously know some DC comics better than the layman, I suppose, but I don't have enough reference to actually have an opinion on if something is actually underrated or if I just don't know enough about them and I've only in my little exposure think that maybe they should be more important than they are. That being said, some of my picks I for sure know are going to be controversial based on just me being on the inside of the Marvel comic book circle.
Since I have 5 and then a bonus, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, mine
is this in or like this is number 5?
Yeah, this will be
number
5.
1 has got to be the most underrated in your opinion.
Okay. Then I might have to switch this, but I can do that after we talk. So let me preface this by saying this is all underrated in my mind, where my mental state is like right now as a comic book fan and what I've been reading / watching / all that stuff. So it could be that you listen to this and you're like, dude, that guy is totally not underrated. He is awesome and he's everywhere. Do you live under a rock? Actually, yes, I do. So anyway, this is based off of my current just psyche. So I'm going to say that number 5 for me is, oh man, like I said, I didn't have this in the list. Yeah, I'm going to say Cloak. From Cloak and Dagger.
Okay.
I specifically picked him over Dagger because I've read a little bit of Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
I've watched both of the seasons of the TV show, and man, his power just seems like it could be so ridiculously powerful.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that, I mean, if it had been for the TV show, I would know nothing about him. I know a little bit, and there might be some you're like, dude, he was on a TV show, so he's legit. But I feel like I want to see him, and obviously Cloak's going to come along with him,
Yeah.
probably. But
You mean Dagger?
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Dagger's going to come along with him. But I feel like there's a lot to him that I want to see him see how he deals with things with the larger Marvel properties.
I am drawing a blank on where it's from, but I'm pretty sure he has a significant moment of like, oh, sweet, they pulled in Cloak, and like without him in this moment, this would have gone very badly.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe Secret
I'm leaning
Wars?
towards Civil War.
Oh, Civil War. Okay.
Possibly Secret War.
I haven't read.
And then my second guess of where that happened would have been in the Ultimates from 2015.
I'd have to take your word on that. I've only recently realized what the deal is with the Ultimates. So
Right. Well, this is actually, I mean, it's funny. It's the Ultimates in the main universe, I think. So I don't know. He's for sure done some cool stuff somewhere, but I agree with that. I think that's a good number 5. For me, number 5, I was starting off with maybe something pretty controversial, but I put She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters. And I say that knowing full well that she is a current member of the Avengers and that they are driving full speed ahead into a World War She-Hulk event. And knowing that she had a pretty significant presence in Civil War II and in general, even ever since Dan Slott's run on She-Hulk back in the 2010-ish area, I believe that's maybe a little earlier. I'm drawing a blank of when that actually happened. But Dan Slott's run on She-Hulk's really cool. You should read it if you haven't. Knowing even that she has some substantial, like some face time in Marvel proper and is not as maybe B or C tier as Cloak is, I still think that it's a very underrated character that a lot of people are going to suddenly get exposed to whenever we do the She-Hulk Disney Plus show.
yeah,
So super powerful character. She's like in the Avengers stuff I've been reading. I've been like, that's kind of where I originally got this idea from, like thinking, man, I want to see more of her. Like, she's such a cool character. She like, I just think in a lot of ways more interesting than Bruce Banner, even just like the things that she has to go through being a woman in the Hulk, like the norm of a giant hulking man being cool, and then somebody as powerful and even hulking as Jennifer Walters kind of walking around and completely owning it is super cool and compelling and interesting to me. And I want to see more of that, especially in the MCU. For a variety of reasons, of which I won't go into right now because of time, but that's my number 5. What you got on 4?
So number 4 might be a more ignorant pick of me because I don't know just how much he exists within the like the actual Marvel universe and everything. But Multiple Man, Madrox.
Okay.
I read Multiple Man number 1, and it just seemed like he had a lot of, man, there could be some cool stuff going on with that. So this could be something that somebody's like, no, he's not underrated because he is everywhere or something like that. And he actually could be everywhere. But yeah, I say that as a guy who's read just a few of his titles and seen him pop up in a few other things. So him, I've got nothing else to say about.
Yeah,
that, so.
he's been in X-Men, right? So he was in X3.
I remember seeing him somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool character. I've read a maybe Marvel Knights Multiple Man story. So like slightly more mature. I don't remember it being especially risque, but it was really good. Yeah. And also like, I like him in that he has I've always thought this was interesting about his powers. Like he has versions of himself like outliving their own life. And then if they ever happen to get absorbed back into him, he takes in all that experience. So he feels all their joy and their pain. So that also is something that can be super compelling. But I think there was like this real tragic story where one of them like went and like started a family and then had to come back and like he lost that family. It's just gone. So super interesting. For number 4 for me, my list keeps. Oh yeah, this is a ring dinger. I think Silver Surfer is underrated.
See, I almost tossed him in there, but I just haven't read enough. And no, I remember I grew up feeling like Silver Surfer must have been one of the most important heroes on the planet.
Yeah.
And now it's just like he had Silver Surfer Black, which I still haven't read, Colby. I'm sorry.
It's so good. It's
and
really good.
so good. Oh, we can't put the hair on it.
I mean, we could.
We need to get little cutouts. So yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you were affirming me. He's obviously a massive character in the Marvel universe. He's a herald of Galactus. He's extremely powerful, and honestly, he has some very iconic comic books in the run. But if I'm thinking about like characters that I feel like in the mix of everything, still, even so, don't get the recognition that they should for just how powerful and interesting they are. I mean, there's like whole story arcs based off of like replacing what he was known for, like being the Herald of Galactus, like is a super cool concept. Most recently, like Thor, taking over that role. But he's just super powerful. He's super interesting. He's like a little bit meta thinking, he kind of has that higher intellect thing. And I don't know. I just feel like there's so many stories to be told with that character, and I cannot wait for Fantastic Four in the MCU, especially to see if we get that flavor. I could spin off on that too, I hope we don't skip over all the iconic Fantastic Four villains and just to rush to those characters. But anyway, that's my number 4. What you got for number 3?
So for number 3, by the way, I'm done with my Marvel ones. These are all, the rest of them are DC. And this is a guy who had his own TV show at one point, made many cameos in the Arrowverse, had a major motion picture, but John Constantine, like, he's got such potential with his power.
Yeah.
And I know there's like John Constantine super fans out there, but I'm like, man, there's just something about magic that should potentially make you a world beater if you need to be.
I he's spoiler alert, he's not on my list. I almost put Doctor Strange on my list for that reason.
Yeah, and I can see that, but I mean, it's tough to think about underrated whenever you think about these people who have these are the zeitgeist of America or of the world right now.
Sure.
So.
He's one that I've only seen the movie and read a handful of comics, but always been interested in this character.
Yeah, I watched the TV show, and I don't even think I realized it was a DC property at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, okay, it looks cool. And then I saw a few episodes. Then, because it popped up on DC Universe, like the app, whenever it had TV shows. And then I went through and started watching everything in order, and that's how that started. But yeah.
Cool.
Constantine.
My number 3, I almost put this higher, and this is like timely, I think, as well. Miss Marvel Kamala Khan is one of my favorite characters, and as popular as she has become since her debut in like the mid 2020s, 2015-ish era, 2016, something like that. There are still so many people that just like throw her to the side as a knockoff American Pakistani Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So much to the point that it has been semi-leaked confirmed that they are going to like slightly alter her powers in the MCU to avoid them, I'm guessing, like being too close to when they inevitably show Reed Richards, because her embiggen stuff is Stretch-esque. Though I don't think it's the same. I think there's a clear difference between the things. But I've seen some screenshots and some discussions based on like those screen grabs of like what they're trying to do, and it's almost like I'm saying this with a very light hand, but Green Lantern-esque, in that she can kind of like with her appendages, like almost like create. Like if Green Lantern were to create a fist that was bigger, instead of it actually being his fist, if that makes sense. I'm using that very loosely because I don't have a great way to put it, and I've only seen limited things. But I know that they are doing it different than what's in the comics, and that alone, they're going to upset a lot of like the diehard comic fans. Like,
Yeah.
you know, especially, and it's going to be really hard to not look at it this way if this is the reason, if they took away Kamala's powers because the old white guy that had him first has dibs or something.
Yeah.
Also, like, I don't care if they're the same. Like,
Yeah.
make them what they are. You know, we have already had a Quicksilver, and in the Eternals coming out next week, we're getting Makari, I think is how you say her name, and she's a speedster as well. Like, that's her thing. She's super fast, and so is Quicksilver, and that's okay. So,
I mean, look in DC, we got Plastic Man and Elongated Man.
sure, right? Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, like we have 2 Captain Americas in the MCU now, and Bucky Barnes could arguably be our third. And they all have basically the same powers and strength kind of thing as Black Panther in a manner. You know, like there's going to be crossover, like powers are powers. There's not an unlimited amount of them. So that alone just makes me think that people are underrating just how significant she is right now in comics.
Yeah. So my number 2, along the lines of Constantine and the Power of Magic, is Zatanna.
Ah, cool.
I'm just thinking, when she shows up, it seems like it is like world changing.
Right.
If she comes in and she's doing it right.
Is she, I believe in the animated series, she's the daughter of Dr. Fate. Is that a thing? Or maybe...
I actually can't
I
remember.
think Dr. Fate takes over her father at one point.
Maybe. See,
Spoilers.
like I said, this is just based on what I've read, and I was scrolling through a list of heroes, and she popped up, and I was like, you know, I see her sometimes, like when she shows up, maybe it's a little predictable or whatever in things I've seen, but whenever I've seen her really dig into her powers, I'm like, dude, it's that magic thing again. Like, there's no telling what they can do.
The cool thing about those magic heroes is that, like, where's the ceiling?
Yeah.
There is no ceiling. There is no spoon.
There is no spoon.
So I agree with you. The magic ones can quickly
and
feel underrated.
I have a feeling that if there's an actual big time fans out there listening, be like, dude, Zatanna has had plenty. I mean, she's had her own comic titles and everything, but you know, I just feel like I'd be curious how to see her come across on more. What am I trying to say? On the big screen, you know, how would that play out?
I went at my list like thinking like, okay, who is hyper popular right now because of a combination of TV time and because of the TV time or movie time, getting more comics because of that, you know, like, you know, the big 3 in the Marvel, Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America are the heavy hitters in the Marvel universe right now. And obviously there are great stories being written outside of that, but they're not going to just stop making those comics for a long while because they're going to sell. And I think there's a lot of comics and characters that deserve just as much recognition. My number 2, this is probably my most controversial one on the whole list. But Miles Morales Spider-Man, I think is extremely underrated because he has to deal with always living in the shadow of Peter Parker.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I read his like debut books, a couple months back, I read the last, like the letters to the editor sections, and it was like offensive, you know, just how little people were, you know, rating him, like truly underrated in the beginning. And now I'm just like, I'm interested in us covering some Spider-Man on the show pretty soon. And I'm really torn.
Sure
I'm just like, Peter Parker or Miles Morales?
I mean, I'm sure we'll do both, but I'm more interested in Miles right now.
Me too.
For sure.
So,
he's such a cool character. He has just great storytelling and like in his short history already. And even with Into the Spider-Verse being as popular as it was, I still feel like so many people just don't know how awesome the character is. I cannot wait until we get more Miles in the MCU.
Yeah.
All we've had is a wink.
Yeah.
A little pretty heavy-handed
one.
one.
Is it true that they announced the second movie for Spider-Verse?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was like some fan campaign or something.
No, it's happening. It's because of the style of it, it's pretty tough to make. So it takes them a while. But that's my number 2, and it was almost my number 1, but I thought of one more that I was like,
My number one.
Number one.
I'm going to stop that because I was probably really loud in the mics. This is controversial just because of
Heyo.
I'm pulling it from one specific instance. There was one time, whenever I first saw him come onto the scene in DC, it was from such a heartfelt and like genuinely like I want to be helpful type of a thing. And, you know, he's been the butt of jokes. They made a movie about him that was not well received. And like he shows up from time to time. I've got some of his comics, you know, and I just wish, I mean, and in some ways he's almost a blatant ripoff of one particular Marvel hero.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a guess who I'm talking about?
I'm guessing Aquaman.
No.
Okay.
No. I'll give you another
Shows
hint.
my thoughts on Aquaman.
It's like a certain hero on the Marvel universe if that hero wielded a giant hammer.
I'm trying to think of. I mean, Thor comes to mind immediately as the.
But no, like the person in Marvel did not have a hammer. I'm saying there's a very prominent hero you just named who, if he had wielded a hammer in addition to his special garb, he might have been very similar. If you still don't know,
I'm drawing a blank.
he was played by Shaquille O'Neal in the movie.
Shazam.
No, Steel.
Steel.
Yeah.
Didn't he play? He was Shazam?
I
though,
feel
right?
like he was, yeah. So I don't know. Like I feel like Steel has potential to be awesome because he's this strong, smart black man with the he was able to make an Iron Man suit,
Right.
you know. And when Superman died, he launched into battle to like fill the gap,
Going here so I can look up some images of Steel while
Yeah.
Jim's talking.
so he can fill the gap. And you know, he put an S on his chest during the battle after
John
Doomsday has
Henry
taken. Yep,
Irons.
John Henry Irons. He put it on there to like honor Superman because Superman had like saved him, you know, saved the world so many times, and people were like, because the whole era after that was the reign of the Superman, and people like asking him if he was saying that he was Superman. He was like, "No, I'm not Superman. I put this S on my chest to honor him." And like I don't know, I feel like if Iron Man can be the axle on which the MCU turns in the beginnings, then I feel like Steel could definitely be big time. So he was my number one.
I can say for sure that he must be underrated because I don't know if I've ever read a single comic. If I have, he was a back character in the background
Yeah.
somewhere. I for sure don't know if I've actually read anything with him. So interesting. Not who I thought your first pick would be.
Yeah.
My first pick is somehow maybe more controversial than Miles Morales being underrated because I know he's still super popular, but I still think he's unfortunately living in the shadow of Peter Parker. This character has been in the MCU. They've had their own solo film. They still have comics about them, and it's understood how powerful they are. And still, you have a guess?
Yeah.
Who?
Well, I'll let you finish unless you were.
I
literally
don't
about to
tell
say
me. I'm ready for a guess.
Captain Marvel.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is. Let me ask you this: like, do you think of? So I have these stupid conversations with my wife, who, thank God, she humors me constantly. She just pretends she's interested. Of like when you're thinking about interstellar, non-intergalactic, from Earth characters, like who are you thinking about, and non-magic things, you know, as the most powerful Marvel character? Does Carol Danvers come to your mind?
Absolutely.
She comes to my mind, but I feel like that is not the normal. I mean, it is understood in the comics that on Earth, from Earth, Carol Danvers is the heavy hitter. Like that's who you go to. There's a reason she's running Alpha Flight up in space as the first line of defense up there because that's where you put your big gun.
Yeah.
You know, and even despite having her own movie, which was awesome, if you go into Endgame, you see her like several times just her and Thanos
Mhm.
going at each other, and the thing he has to do to get her off of him is rip a power stone out of an Infinity Gauntlet, squeeze it to take its powers, and then just punch her with it.
Yeah.
And that only just knocked her away.
Yeah.
It would have killed anybody else. She has so many awesome comic runs. The writers are great. Like they're trying. They're trying, but I still feel like she just doesn't get as much attention as some of the other characters do, and
Yeah.
she's just so underrated.
I've just heard so many, those, and I hate saying this because for all I know, some of our fans are these people, but like they just don't want to give somebody a chance if it's not the white dude that used to wear the mantle.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
whatever. I couldn't tell you a single thing about any of the Captain Marvels, whatever that used to be that, or anything like that. And I can't even tell anything about Miss Marvel from the swimsuit days. It's like
right.
I know Captain Marvel from the modern interpretation, and she is a beast.
Yeah, Kelly Sue DeConnick stories, all the more modern stuff. She's such a cool character. She has such an interesting like history in the comics, and man, it's just so cool. I mean, maybe this just shows like where we come from. Like historically, the female characters haven't been the big badass characters, but it's awesome that like finally we're at a place where that's becoming more accepted. But I still feel like so many need to just like check that stuff at the door and like check out these characters. They're so awesome. Carol Danvers, underrated.
Whenever Holly and I came walking out of the movie, I asked her what she thought, and she loved Captain
Same
Marvel.
for Katie.
She was like, it was just nice to see a woman kicking butt,
Yeah,
And I was like,
I agree.
it's a good one. I got her a Captain Marvel little Funko Pop
Yeah.
and a Captain Marvel t-shirt that I think she forgot she had until just the other day because she wore it a few days last week.
Right. Yeah. Katie told me one of the scenes, like I watched her like physically react to this when we were watching it in the theaters. There's a scene in Captain Marvel where she's just escaped she's hit Earth. She's just escaped S.H.I.E.L.D. She ends up at this little cafe, and there's a biker dude out there reading a newspaper, sitting on his bike. And he says something like, "Smile for me, honey." And Katie just shook her head and was like, because somebody's done that to her before. And I think that's an experience that a lot of women have experienced before. So just showing like the whole arc of that is her overcoming some of the things that she's had to deal with before. And it's just cool. I don't know, even beyond if she didn't have a film and didn't kick butt in game. Carol Danvers is awesome, and I think more people need to know about her.
Absolutely. We haven't covered her yet, have we?
No, just Miss
I
Marvel.
feel like maybe we mentioned her at something. Yeah, because she showed up in an episode of one of the Miss Marvel that we maybe
number
part of it.
1 or 2, I think.
So I have a
honorable mention.
Honorable mention, that's the word. And this guy has had in his own TV show, but this one comes from like I didn't know who Black Lightning was until I watched his TV show. He came from he'd been around for a long time in DC Comics, but just seeing this guy Jefferson Pierce, I think that's his name. Like I'm ashamed to say I haven't thought about Black Lightning since I finished the Arrowverse a while back.
Right.
But man, he is just like such an awesome character that I think a lot of people could learn from. If just give the TV show a chance. It's a good show. I really enjoyed it. And it's just, all I can say is I feel like I've heard people refer to him like, he's nobody.
Just meh.
But I really dig him, and I've got a couple of his comics like in my pull list on DC Universe. But anyway, if you haven't checked out Black Lightning, it may take a couple episodes to kind of get the flow of how everything works, but I really enjoyed it. The show really says something.
Yeah.
And the hero's awesome. So give Black Lightning a chance.
I need to check that one out as well. If you agree, disagree, have your own list, we want to hear. You're not wrong for disagreeing with us. I probably could have spent way more time making my list than I actually did. Both of us could. But just that I feel like there's also a validity to like when you're first just thinking, who do you think of and who do you not think of?
I will say the first person that popped into my head was Booster Gold. but I feel like he's one of those kind of cult favorites.
Sure.
So I didn't
I thought
know
about
if he
Mr. Miracle as well, but now he's like this iconic
actually
or
works as underrated, more just like he's the one that true fans are fans of,
Right.
So
yeah.
I didn't mention
Yeah, to an extent I'm sure people can make arguments for even Superman, like we want to hear
that
him.
was the joke I first made. Yeah.
Yeah. If we want to give us your top 5 underrated heroes, they don't have to even be top 2. If you think, I also thought about Spawn, being an Image character, like he kind of, Todd McFarlane creating that character when they ran over to Image is like their first big, massive character. So I'm super excited to hear any of your insight or anything that you all think about those characters. We want to hear your opinions. There's no wrong answers here unless they are against what I said. Anything else, Drew, before we get on up out of here?
No, I think that's it. We already kind of covered our socials and everything. So
yeah, please reach out if you're interested for the 2-Man Christmas.
Yes.
There's a deadline on that.
Hashtag 2-Man Christmas 2021.
Yep. And there'll be some stuff in the description of just check boxes to get in multiple entries. And I think that's about everything that we have.
Seriously, join the Discord because I think that the 2-Man Secret Santa is going to be awesome, but you got to be on Discord to be a part of it. So
yeah, it's just one of those things like, we can't just, hunt you down on Twitter. We got to be able to communicate to all of you and make it happen. But anyway, I think that's going to be it. See you all next time on the podcast. Bye. Yeah, it's good. The 2-Man Comic Book Club podcast is hosted by Alex Miller and Drew Morris. Our guy in the chair is Torrance Watkins. Logos and design work are by Tessa Price. Original theme music and compositions are by Drew Morris.
But perfect timing.